You're listening to episode 231 of Lifestyle Locker Radio with Adi Shakti. Hi, I'm Dr. Josh Handt, and welcome to Lifestyle Locker Radio, where we help you create an awesome life and lifestyle. From nutrition to fitness, mindfulness to peak performance, and relationships to money mindset, we bring you on an amazing journey to help you unleash your human potential. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lifestyle Locker Radio. We have another amazing guest here today. Her name is Adi Shakti. I want to welcome you to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Josh. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Yeah, this is going to be a really neat conversation. You have a really neat story. Just a little bit about our pre-show talk. I want to say bi-coastal is not even the right word, but different hemispheres almost at this point, from where you are and where you're going and where you've been. So why don't you give the audience a little bit of your story, because I think this is going to lead us into the importance of the conversations we're going to have for our audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Indianapolis in the Midwest. And early in my life, I experienced a lot of death in my immediate family. And that really was a foundation for me starting to ask some bigger questions around why. Like why we're here, what life is about, from a very young age, really working through these questions of purpose and potential and having this limited time on earth. What is it that I could do to leave it, better than what I found it? And so I've always had a passion for social justice work, for humanitarian work. And in college, I went to school up in Chicago and actually studied the philosophy of social justice. And so I really, at that point in my life, was diving into these great thinkers, studying Bentham and Nietzsche and, Descartes and the Plato, Aristotle, all of these incredible Western minds, but was frustrated a bit in that they were great ideas, but there wasn't really concrete action steps. And how to implement these global philosophies into a lifestyle, into a way to actually meaningfully be of service. And so I found the yoga philosophy in college and fell in love. And that's when I really started my practice, started my study, and understanding the physical journey of, the postures and the things that I think a lot of people are a lot more familiar with, but also the energetics, understanding the nervous system, understanding trauma, understanding the brain science, and ultimately how these different techniques, the physical postures, the breathing techniques, the meditation, how these can support us in restoring, optimal health. And so I became curious around the relationship between the yoga philosophy and this social justice work early in my career. And so after college, I moved to Costa Rica and have been pretty much based there since 2011. And that's when I started really getting into different local indigenous communities and doing different types of global humanitarian work. I started with another company and was traveling all around the world. I was in Cambodia, in Thailand, in Guatemala, and in Delhi, there in Calcutta, down into Costa Rica, down in Ecuador. But was working for that couple of years, just this kind of jet set lifestyle of seeing what it meant to be of service to these indigenous communities, most specifically. And the themes were vast. Human trafficking in Calcutta, rainforest rejuvenation and indigenous rights protection in Ecuador. And so I was just in this beautiful place of international tourism, humanitarian work, and really seeing kind of what was working and what wasn't on a global scale. And I just got completely burnt out because, I was spending some time, I remember specifically in a human trafficking rescue center, and I'm sitting there with this little girl, 8, 9 years old, with cigarette burns on her arms, having just been rescued from one of the brothels there. But that's just one of the examples of just things really cutting me deeply. And I was feeling myself kind of unable to function because I was just so sensitive and am still so sensitive. But that the lifestyle of, being in Phnom Penh and then Delhi and then Calcutta and then Guatemala City and then LA, New York, DC, like the whole bit just hit me really, really hard. And so that's when I decided to start my own company, SoulWork, which has been around now for 6 years. And our focus is on how to marry this passion for humanitarian give back and social justice initiatives with, prioritizing the health of self. So, this relationship between spiritual inquiry and social activism, and ultimately how we can start to reach our potential as human beings, starting with our own inner work and making sure that the work that we're doing in the world is an overflow instead of kind of an attempt to, fix the inside brokenness by kind of pointing our fingers outside. It's this approach and theory of really starting internally with these questions and wounds and trauma and early childhood development issues and all these different kinds of things to get clarity, so that we can then come together in community and actually be of service in a way that is sustainable. And so that's it in brief.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal story, phenomenal bio, just to give everybody a background. So I want to circle back to that jet set lifestyle for a second. I think this is just an important little piece to share with people, because you're going, oh, we had all these places and it was challenging. And granted, seeing the things you saw, like even the child trafficking, like you can't see under my shirt here, but I have goosebumps. And I'm like, it gets me angry and really angry to hear that that's even a thing in this world. So can you talk about the stressors that, how they were manifesting, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, while you're doing this, where you're like doing it because you have this high energy, you're showing up with a full cup, but it sounds like it's like things are you're giving away all of that energy to all of these things. And now you're stuck at a pivotal point in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that being challenged, and the more that I continue to understand about trauma and kind of absorbing trauma and how this can affect our ability to function in hindsight, I'm really understanding more about what was happening in my system. But I think that even more so in hindsight, really starting to understand the importance of having a super solid anthropological, if that's a word, but an understanding of the anthropology of the communities that we're serving, because I think that what can happen, especially with this kind of global North-centric perspective on service, is we show up in these communities with a understanding of how our society and communities work, and thinking that we can implement these same formats into global communities. And so for me, I was feeling exhausted, and I think that a lot of that was also coming from putting all of this energy forth and trying to do good for the world, and also seeing things not work because the approach just didn't have the level of consciousness and awareness around these cultures that we really needed to be able to have the highest level of impact. So I've been in Costa Rica, like I mentioned, since 2011, and since then we've started a project for the indigenous community here. And I'll just, a little anecdote, but the indigenous community here, we were having volunteers. We go out and they live for 3 months. And then in exchange, they're studying with SoulWork and getting scholarships to the work that we do. But we actually had this couple that was there. And at the end of the volunteer term, the man that was in the couple was invited by the local tribesmen for a celebratory party. And they drink chicha, which is this traditional alcohol that they make out of sugarcane juice. And at the party, one of the men actually invited our volunteer. He offered his daughter, his 14-year-old daughter, to him for the evening as a thank you, right, for his service, which has been happening for thousands of years. The indigenous doing this. And so it put me in this incredibly complicated ethical position, because for me, it's very, and especially with my background in human trafficking and all things, it's like black and white wrong. That's just, it's simple, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking like, it's a little crazy sounding already.
Exactly. And, for them, it was like him extending a part of his family, a part of his heart. Like it was this very generous gift from his perspective. And so when you're going into these communities, it's really fascinating to start to kind of see, and I connected with our local leadership and the government there, and kind of found the best action piece on how to handle that particular situation. But it's really fascinating to see from a global perspective, when you're getting into these kinds of communities, the different challenges that you're faced with that maybe, you don't expect, especially if you're just going in with these, good intentions. So it's something that we've been working with for years to find the best way of being of service. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, myself as a chiropractor, and not to bring chiropractic into this, but some of the philosophy that we have is, healing is an inside out job. It's not an outside in job. And I think that's essentially what you were saying, that we come in with our perceived outside in ideas to a community. We're in our, in our houses with windows and air conditioning, and we're on Zoom right now,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
1,000 miles away. Wow, really cool. But then we bring all of those concepts that are in our mind and try to solve something which has zero concept of what us at all. Like, so we have to really and I think that's probably what you are doing with SoulWork. You're bringing the community, or how do I say this? You're bringing the inside out version of what I was just saying to those communities. So you're not coming in and trying to make or change something. You're allowing it to change from the inside out and heal and grow that way.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the journey from spiritual inquiry to empowered leadership. And we do it, through the yogic
Mhm.
lens as well. So we're working with these ancient techniques, to support people, and giving them space and time away from their normal lives to start to ask these deeper questions. Because oftentimes I find that people that are doing social work, people that are interested in counseling, oftentimes if you look back in their story, they're the ones that actually need the most work themselves. And so it's important, I think, that we prioritize our own self-care and self-healing before we try to carry the torch and ultimately, guide others into their own journey of that kind of work. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's neat. The word doctor means to teach. And I think, in the work you're doing, and we talk about these, social workers and the therapists, they have to have, I'm sure, like myself, I grew up in a chiropractic family. I'm a second generation chiropractor, but a lot of people in my profession that get into our profession come in because of some trauma or some amazing miraculous experience. And they show up and they're on fire because they've had that inside out experience. Someone like me that took everything for granted my whole life, it was so different. I had to, and I don't know if I will disappoint myself, but I mean, I've been in some pretty horrific car accidents and some traumas in my life, physical traumas, where chiropractic's really brought me out of the hole. But it's, I can sympathize and I can understand people now where they're coming from when like this is going on. So I don't want to keep going off on these tangents this way, but I think it's just really neat that there's so many similarities in just the conversation on how life works. Like
yeah,
this is it's so cool.
it is. And I think that, what you just shared is one of the primary teachings when we get into business, especially when we're in the theoretical part of it. Later we get more into the technical and supporting people and growing their impact in that way. But when we're starting with these questions around the why and who it is that you're serving and what it is that you're going to do, because a lot of people, I think, especially if they're interested in entrepreneurship, they are multi-passionate. And so sometimes it can be difficult to even start that process of getting clarity around what it is that you want to do. And we oftentimes ask people to reflect on their trauma because oftentimes those very teachings are the place where we're able to cultivate the most empathy, the most compassion for the other, because we've been there ourselves. And so it's interesting to see how people's journey in developing their businesses actually has roots in trauma.
Never thought of it that way, but yes, it's like growing this tree.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's pretty. So let's dive into soul work. We get to Costa Rica. You started this journey there really to make this huge impact, this global impact. And you said, yogic teacher. Is that right? Yogic? Am I saying that right? Okay. So that's a new word really for me, but like these yogic teachings, and your experiences from your own trials and tribulations of having this jet set lifestyle, which obviously was not made for you. Right. So give us a little bit of like the down to earth of what soul work really is and what kind of things you're seeing in the evolution of the growth of the company and the people you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So SoulWork at its core is really, the primary offerings that we have are for professionals that are interested in offering through this holistic wellness lens. And so the core of our offerings are yoga teacher training. So we have different focus areas, the 200-hour introductory course, the 300-hour course. We have the trauma-informed teacher training, the prenatal teacher training. And so basically what they are is they're intensives where people come for, and this is when we were in Costa Rica. Now, of course, we've had to pivot virtual a bit, but we have the SoulWork Jungle Ashram there that we founded a few years ago. And so it's this permaculture project. It's container housing, compost toilets, local hands take care of the gardens, take care of the grounds or in the kitchen. It's really been built with this intention to support people in having an opportunity to unplug and be in nature. We're just a little bit outside of a town called Puerto Viejo. And so we're about 20 minutes away from some of the most beautiful tropical Caribbean beaches in the world. We're nestled there in the jungle. We get woke every morning. It's monkeys are our alarm clock. And so it's an opportunity for people to come for times ranging from about a week to about 5 weeks, actually.
Okay.
Have a pretty intensive schedule. And so we're cutting out a lot of sugar, we're cutting out alcohol, we're cutting out caffeine, no internet, we're up at the crack of dawn doing our yoga practice and then learning about all of these different elements of the yoga theory. So this includes, of course, the postures, but also the lifestyle philosophy, understanding the roots, from the Vedas through now and kind of the history of yoga, understanding the anatomy of the nervous system, both from a Western perspective and the Eastern perspective. We talk about the chakras, right, which is really just the hippie word for the nervous system. So starting to kind of understand the relationship between these things and ultimately how these practices can support us in discharging the nervous system is ultimately what we're doing. It's a daily opportunity to detoxify any triggers or traumas to the nervous system, which we see now, especially when we're constantly being inundated by
no kidding.
global. If I wanted to have a panic attack, I could dig in my phone for 3 minutes and so we're in this new era where it's really important. So we have this opportunity to, people come together in community, and then they go out into the world, and a lot of them are starting their own businesses, their own retreat companies, their own studios. They're offering yoga at, just workshops. We also have a lot of professionals that are working in institutions that are curious about how to apply these yogic practices into where it is that they're already working. So we do have doctors that come to us. We have people that are working in the prison systems, school teachers that are working in inner cities, people that have this tendency and this desire to want to be of service and are curious about, mindfulness and more of the Eastern approach to finding optimal health in the human being. And so it's incredible. We've trained right around 1,000 people now over the past 5 years. And then now we've switched to virtual. And so that's been incredible. In any given time, I'm having people from all the continents, logging in for our classes, except Antarctica, of course. I guess I should most of the continents. But it's a beautiful journey into really just a place where leaders can go deeper, is really what we're working to do.
Yeah. So this is really neat. I've become during, I'm going to call it the lockdown at this point. I've been becoming an incessant reader, and I've probably put anywhere between, I don't know the exact number, between 50 and 90 books, like whether it's audio, video, or actual physical reading. And one of the books I read, I think, is called 3 Days in Nature. And they take, trauma victims from war, and they bring them on these journeys. And just listening to you talking about bringing people to the jungle, so they get to have this I don't say it doesn't sound right, but I would say it's more of a reconnection than a disconnection, if that makes sense. They get to go in nature. They don't have their technology to futz around with, which, it's never more than, 3 feet from us at most times of the day here in, in the US. And then you're changing your eating lifestyles, your morning rituals, which I believe can transform any human being if you transform your mornings. And all of these things start to evolve. I mean, I think that just alone is got to be, if you had someone there for 3 days, that they're going to be transformed, let alone a week or 5 weeks. To me, that's just like my head's going to explode, like that emoji on our phones. And I think that's so powerful. And, I know virtually, this is the way we're talking now with your class, I'm sure people are getting a boatload out of it. And I can only imagine the live. To me, it sounds like something that, if you're someone I'm in New York, I mean, if you're in New York City, if you're in one of these places and you go there, I think within the first 5 minutes, you're going to have some kind of change, let alone, this 5 week. So you go through these transformations with these people with SoulWork, you're changing lives, you're teaching people virtually now, you're teaching people via your podcast that you have. what else is on the horizon? Like, what, this sounds like such a really neat journey that you're on, that it's really, I'm excited thinking about it. I want to go to, I've never been to Costa Rica. I want to go to Costa Rica, and play in the sun and the jungle and the beaches and everything. So what's next?
Yeah. So we have a lot going on. And I just wanted to backtrack a little bit, because what you just shared about, the experience of coming and the reference to that book, I just wanted to touch on that just for a moment, because, this concept of detoxifying the conscious mind, so just having that space in nature to start to, you're not having the constant blue light, you're not on your internet, you're not on these things. There's this process of just kind of getting the conscious mind to slow. And then we start to go into the subconscious. And so these, old wounds, these things that are still kind of working through the system that aren't completely resolved, these wounds of the heart, starts to come forth. And then that's where it starts to get really, really juicy, right?
Yep, sure. Yeah.
Because they get loud, people have trouble sleeping. I mean, it's not a comfortable process, right? You're pooping in buckets and you're in the jungle and it's hot and it's sticky.
And all the air conditioning, right? Of course, all of the air conditioning.
Yeah, it's hardcore. We are not.
I know. I'm just joking.
But what's next? So really, this concept of the trauma, and starting to understand, because really even trauma as a field is new. It used to be called shell shock and then post-traumatic stress disorder. And it was more associated with people that came back from war. The more that we dig into this science, and I'm sure that you know as a chiropractor, and implement this, but we understand that trauma actually affects all of us in some way or another, through early childhood experiences or in our upbringing, death, accidents, all of these things, and these emotional, psychological traumas, and sometimes physical traumas. Ultimately, they all still sit in the body. And so with SoulWork, we've really been working, and it's so beautiful as well, because we're seeing this, the Black Lives Matter movement. We're seeing oppressed voices really showing up and coming to the surface, and we're all being called to step up and to be better in how it is that we support others. And so with this trauma education, and especially, as a yoga teacher or someone that is offering these alternative, holistic health services, it's really important that we educate ourselves and have the background to start to understand the subtleties and how we can be of service to others, to see the symptoms of PTSD and to know what to do in a situation if somebody comes into a panic attack, what to do. And so really the future of SoulWork now, we've really been pivoting to make all of our programs trauma sensitive, trauma informative, to provide, that level of education, so that as our leaders that are being trained through SoulWork are going out into the world and doing whatever they're doing and building their businesses or whatever it is, are getting this education on anti-racism, on, having diverse voices, especially in my team as well. Now it's a priority for us to have. We're doing all of our programs in Spanish now this year as well. So we're getting the Latina perspective, the Global South perspective, the Black American experience perspective, but just giving people an opportunity to start to shift their worldview through the lens of other leaders, and ultimately just creating a platform, really, how we feel and view it kind of as the new era of conscious leadership, and making sure that we're all outfitted with our blind spots and actually encouraging difficult conversations around our blind spots. Because before, yoga has been a blonde, skinny, white girl, middle class dominated activity, right? And so we're starting to challenge that. And how do we get mindfulness, emotional education, social emotional learning, behavioral therapy, these kinds of things that are new and exciting, and actually supporting our youth and, how to cultivate healthy relationships, all of these kinds of things, but starting to just outfit a new generation of leaders to be more sensitive to the realities of what people are struggling with. Really thrilled.
I think that's really powerful, and being able to have conversations, and having that freedom to actually have a conversation where it's okay, during this whole, everything that's been going on the past 9 months, I think people are afraid to even have a conversation about certain topics. And I think that's very suppressing.
It's sad, and it's not democratic, right? It's like, as soon as you sense that somebody's on the other side of the fence, it's like the conversation ends.
Yeah. There needs to be that freedom. And I think people need to be okay. I mean, I'm just saying it from the US, right? When I think about this, like that's what makes us so great is that we can have opposing views. Like I could say,
Right.
I don't like your, political party or your belief, but you don't like mine, but it's okay. Like
Right.
and I have friends in the military that have been in special forces, and he goes, that's what makes our country so great, but so hard for so many, because you can have some crazy person saying XYZ over here and another person over here that doesn't like it, but realize, and or vice versa, but being able to have that conversation and not like create physical trauma from it and be like, okay, you know what? I love you. You're a human. You're a human. We're just going to be different. And that's very cool. So like, I think that's very powerful.
Yeah. And we've been, we also teach on, conscious relationship in our prenatal training, conscious conception, conscious birth, educating women on their rights in a hospital. But these kinds of skills in being able to communicate through conflict, because a lot of people aren't taught, and especially with the algorithms and everything else, it's like we're all living our own bubble. So that's also a part of our curriculum is, okay, like when you're faced with something uncomfortable, how do we see this as an opportunity for growth instead of kind of shutting down? Because we're like losing that ability to disagree respectfully. And so it's really, that's important, as well as where, as leaders, like you have to be able to talk and support whoever's sitting down in front of you. And sometimes there's going to be, sticky things. So,
And in the scientific world, for the people that are listening that are kind of nerdy, I mean, if we look at a cell itself, it cannot be in growth and defense at the same time. And we're just trillions of cells, right? So if you're constantly on the defense, you're never going to grow. And if you're constantly in growth, you're going to probably be in defense at some point in your life, because we're humans at this. That's just going to happen. So I just want people to think about that, because in the past 9 months, there's been a lot of, walls put up in front of our face, whether it's with friends or family or coworkers or whatever. And you can grow from these situations. It doesn't need to become that fear and defense mode, because there's never growth in that mode ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So this is really cool. So I'm going to ask you a final question here. It's actually 3 questions, or 3 parts to one question. So if you had to, you have our whole audience here. We have thousands of people that are tuning in. If you could tell them 3 specific things to do today to unleash their human potential, and they could be 3 simple things or 3 complex. I like the simple ones, but 3 things, what would you tell them to do?
So one is prioritize balancing your nervous system, which sounds, maybe strange, but in our history as humans, we have had this process of fight or fly, and we've been able to, in our primal state, execute that, right, as it comes up. Now we're being triggered constantly. Our nervous systems are on fire. A stressful email from a boss, a fight with a romantic partner, a global event. We're just constantly being washed with these stressors, and we don't necessarily take the time to allow our nervous system to discharge, and it creates anxiety, depression, etc. So how do you do that, right? Okay, go for a run, right? Be active. I think be active is probably one that comes up a lot.
Move your body, right?
Your body, but the why there, right? Like allow things to discharge. So that would be my first one. Discharge your nervous system through movement. Another one would be to hug someone and take 3 deep breaths with them. Really, really, really good for
a heart-to-heart hug. A real heart-to-heart hug.
A heart-to-heart hug. Not, my dad does like the back tap, like none
the
of
burp.
that.
You're getting burped.
Yeah, the side tap. An actual heart-to-heart hug. And then the third one would be to, take some time, away from your devices in nature if you can. I know there in a place like New York, it can be tricky, but if there's anywhere that you can go and just be around green and take even just, 5-10 minutes with the intention of doing nothing, those would be my 3.
Awesome. I love that. Hugs, movement, and nature. I mean, what could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
What could go right? Better. All right, everyone. So that's Adi Shakti. I want to thank you so much. This has been a fun journey. I love getting to learn about people, and I love you get to share your story. We're going to have all of your details in the show notes. Everybody that's interested in more, this virtual, I'm sure live things are going to be showing up very, very soon as we conclude what's going on in this world. I think people need to be with each other. Community is super powerful. The human touch, those hugs, those are important. So everyone, Adi Shakti, I want to thank you again. This was awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Josh.
Hey, it's Dr. Josh Handt here, and we need to talk about your health, your fitness, and your lifestyle. I know you, if you're like me, you've seen sickness and disease and even death in your life. And we know the leading causes of death in the United States are cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Many of these conditions and diseases are considered lifestyle-based. And I know that lifestyles in the United States and other countries are not where they should be. We also know that they make you more vulnerable to other sicknesses and conditions. We tend to get our advice and recommendations on health from commercials and marketing, from fast food to pharmaceuticals, and not from experts with real-world experience. Unfortunately, we follow people or products who don't walk the walk or talk the talk. They simply just don't care about your health. It's just about their bottom line. I know we've heard it from our friends and from even our own self-talk that we don't have enough time, we can't make the changes, or there's just too much to do to be healthy. But there is a way to actually take control of your lifestyle and have the accountability and the support you need. We can be bigger than our excuses. For the past 14 years as a chiropractor, I've worked and continue to work with thousands of patients with their lifestyle and ultimately their health. I am now bringing the same philosophy to the online space where we can work as a group to get better, stronger, healthier, and be bigger than our excuses every single day. I've created the 3065 Lifestyle Shift Program to be an online-based, training-based program where you get to learn and be engaged with others in your journey towards a healthy lifestyle and ultimately a healthier life. To be part of this amazing movement, it's just $5 a month. Yes, it's only $5 a month, and that seems too good to be true. Well, it's not. So for the price of a gourmet coffee, you will have access to an amazing program and amazing people that want the best for you too. So when you dive into the content below this video to learn about our lifestyle philosophy, you'll see that we are incredibly unique. No other online program focuses on lifestyle the way we do and delivers the quality and the quantity of content that we do for just $5 a month. And it's not just about the movement. There's a lot more. It's really about your health. So check out the details and other videos below. And when you sign up, I'll even send you the ebook, Inside the Locker, which dives deeper into creating an awesome lifestyle. I look forward to seeing you on the inside of the Lifestyle Locker 3065 Lifestyle Shift Program. Hope you did enjoy that episode with Adi Shakti here on Lifestyle Locker Radio. Make sure to check out all her links, connect with her. SoulWork is her work, and she connects with people and helps people in amazing ways. So make sure you do check her out on lifestylelocker.com/SoulWork. And scroll down if you're watching or listening anywhere podcasts are found, and you can see the links there. All right, y'all. See you soon. Bye-bye.